this June update or season 6 update, I can call it now. It's what it's gonna have. Sorry, my P key doesn't really work super well for some reason anymore. I'm gonna make this a little bigger, but it's gonna have artifacts because we know what the artifacts are gonna be coming. Specifically, this is gonna be, what do you call it? What was the ring and the earring called that got leaked? But it's like an ability damage ring, and it's the passive regen earring that come out. I think this was Ocean's Peace, if I remember correctly. And I forget what the other one's called. Uh, and then on top of that, we're gonna have a FFA area with some sort of resource that you can gather from there. I think this resource is likely going to be large amounts of PvP XP. I don't think we're going to be super creative about it. I think it's just literally going to give you PvP XP for doing activities within a certain zone. We saw this on the PTR, and then the other thing that we know that kind of leads to this is we know the devs mentioned they want something like Great Cleave, which Great Cleave was basically running missions and that encouraged open world PvP. This is something that will encourage open world PvP, and it gets rid of the problem where there's too many people in one faction because everyone's doing an FFA. Like, I think that's what's going to happen there. And then we know there's going to be a console release because of a leak from the localization files within New World, which I could pull up. There's a file within New World that you could boot up called localization, and this was leaked like, I don't know, like in December. If you could read this, what it says, this was on the PTR file. It says Quest console pre-release. And this Quest thing is present in a lot of the files for localization. That's normal. The part that's different is what usually corresponds to the event. For example, before Brimstone, there was Quest Brimstone stands. Like Quest Brimstone stands. Like it was like very, very obvious. And there was like a Quest Elysian Wilds. And both of those came out before their actual release. Now we have Quest console pre-release. Like I wonder what June is going to be. So like realistically, this is what we're going to get. We don't know what the console release is going to be cross world or world, so like the consoles could actually play directly with PC players. I'm guessing it's probably not going to work right away, but something they might add. Are they converting the new engine to Unreal? Is that why they're updating the code to C++? No. They're not converting the engine to Unreal. The entire reason why they're converting the code to C++ right now is just for combat stability and the ability to actually like look at stuff related to combat. That's an upgrade directly to the Azoth engine is what they've called it. So they're going to be able to basically debug stuff. Please don't say FFA. I think it's going to be FFA because they want something like Great Cleave, and from their eyes, the best way to balance something like Great Cleave would be to have an FFA kind of mode. If they do that, it will flop. I know. And I'm 90% sure this is what's going to happen. Unless they've changed direction since we've gotten leaks of this stuff. Like the artifacts thing, this was leaked 1 year ago, basically. This was leaked 1 month ago. Console release, this was leaked 3 months ago. And this upgrade thing was just like stated by devs. And the big PvP thing that's promised is this. It's nothing else. It's this FFA area. That's what we saw when we were on the PTR and what was happening down on this island over here. They had a test area for FFA. That wasn't supposed to be found by players, but it was found by data miners. PC has become a PTR for console release. I mean, kinda, yeah, but I don't think they can bank on console being the solution. Like, they definitely have a market to like tap into there, don't get me wrong, but Asmongold, I think, said this is the one part about Asmongold video that I like agreed with like pretty well. New World has really, really, really bad staying power. Because if you look at the end game of New World right now, like you basically hit escape, go to activities, and you do one of these things. If you're a PvE player, you could do normal expeditions, which you're never gonna do once you're past 700 gear score. I mean, like once you hit like level 60, you don't really need to do normal expeditions anymore. Elite trials are pretty much not playable because they aren't scaled to max level and don't give you good rewards. So both of these things are basically non-existent. So if you're a PvE player, you do mutated expeditions. The actual PvE content in terms of doing defenses for invasions is not very entertaining. That's your other form of PvE content. And your PvP content is 3v3 and OPR. So realistically, the entire endgame is OPR, or you do wars for the most part, or you do mutated expeditions. So you have like those three things. Because 3v3Q is basically dead because there's no cross world on there. That being said, there's only like 2 or 3 worlds left. So I don't think cross world even would help 3v3 that much at this point. I loved M10s, but no reason to do M3s. M10s were rewarding. Yeah, I mean, with M10s, you could sell the gear, right? Or you could sell the runs, or like, there was ways to make gold from it. There's no way to make gold off of doing mutated expeditions with the recent change to where the loot is biased. The loot biasing is actually just a direct nerf because everything's bound on pickup now, and you just can't sell it to other players. So once you have your gear that you want, there's not really a reason to do these mutated expeditions because it's so inefficient to get good gear. Random loot, Umbral shards were useful. Lots of bind on equips. Yeah, like Umbral shards aren't useful anymore. Like the new version of Umbral shards is like basically AGS saying, okay, we don't like the Umbral shard system. The consequence of that is you can't upgrade your OPR gear anymore, so it doesn't feel super rewarding to do OPR. Like OPR is literally just used to stall time or to farm artifacts. Like, there's not really another reason to do OPR right now, for the most part. Like, the dark matter is relatively inconsequential, assuming you do invasions or wars, because every single war crate is going to have 100 of the, of the dark matter in it. That's just not useful. Like, I don't have as much dark matter on this character, because this character hasn't warded in a while, but, like, I don't have to worry about that, or you do invasions. So it's like, what is the endgame of New World? And there isn't one. The only thing that I think that they could add that is partially on this list that we've seen leaked in the past is matchmaking. The problem is the matchmaking that's very likely going to happen is you're selecting tank, DPS, or healer, and you're queuing for an OPR. Fishing is endgame. I mean, that's true because of the new cooking thing. I guess we could add that to the end game. But, like, what is the end game? It's so bad. Like, the leveling experience is great, but the end game is generally poor. That being said, I am a person with 4,000 hours in this game because of the, I guess basically just because of OPR and War. Like, both those game modes are just very entertaining to me. But if I was not in wars right now, which most people are not in wars, I don't see a huge reason to grind right now. Like, OPR is fun, but you're basically comparing OPR as your end game to, like, any game that caters to that as their main game, if that makes sense. Like, OPR is, like, a sub-game within the MMO. But, like, say you want 20v20 PvP. Like, there's other games that you can go to, I imagine, for 20v20 PvP. And they're probably done better because they only focus on the 20v20 PvP versus AGS hasn't touched the 20v20 PvP basically at all. Like, OPR has had some tweaks and adjustments. They feel lackluster. They don't feel polished. Like, even the change to Baron, where you can't snipe it from super, super far, which is annoying in the past. Their fix to that was to put a door that's not even shaped like the opening. It's like a giant square that they just plopped in from the respawn areas. They just duplicated that and put it in there because they couldn't figure out how to edit the object. Plus expansion announcement at Season 6. I guess, yeah. Like we could have expansion or vertical progression. By vertical progression, I mean, 725 gear score. And then we do the whole grind system all over again. Like, this is the best case scenario what happens in season 6. And is this content? Like, in my opinion, no. Like, this is the promised land here. They need to add like maybe 3 or 4 more things before I would consider this to be a patch that was worth waiting 6 to 9 months for. Like maybe like honestly like probably double this list in terms of content and like it's decent. Like if they added in custom wars at the same time, like okay, that's something. Maybe you have cross world PvP, which we've already talked about in terms of doing instances for wars between multiple servers, but that's where that custom wars things comes in as well. But yeah, it's basically a different list. And the thing is like with these 5 points, like there's all this previous stuff here. The 725 gear score, I'm not really sure is leaked. The other thing that's been partially leaked is there's level 66 plus requiring items. And that were introduced into the game at some point. So maybe we see end level 70 here. Which again is not much because we have a new zone that's going to be redefined. From what the devs have said in the past, this is probably going to be Morningdale is completely rehauled into a new thing because they don't want to spread the player base out more by adding in an entirely new zone like they did to Brimstone Stands. And like that's just not worth it. Would more Battle of New World events like the pre-beta help get the streamers more involved in the war? Uh, I mean, if there were servers, yeah, but the problem is New World inherently would have to gamble and create a bunch of new servers so that we're very likely would die once the streamers stop playing because there is no endgame. Like the problem is retention. And there's no retention with no endgame. And there's no endgame. And the reason why there's no endgame, which I think has been harped on by a few different people and that I think is accurate, is New World was originally a survival game. The endgame was surviving and naturally upgrading your base. If there's no survival aspect and you don't die and you don't lose everything, then where's your endgame? There's no inherent endgame built in the New World. Like, if you wanted an endgame in the New World, like, you would need a new raid with really, really good loot and maybe like a new heart rune or something like that. And then, like, I would argue ranked based matchmaking instead of just matchmaking. And if they added these two things on top of everything that I kind of expect, you're in a much better spot, but you're still not in a great spot. I mean, you have an end game now. You got the raid for PvE. That's something. And then you got ranked based matchmaking for the PvPers. And also, the rank based matchmaking also works for PvEers in a way because there's a PvE aspect to the OPR game mode, and at that point, OPR is your end game, which is not wonderful, but it's something. Why don't they just reset territories and server merges every season? Because they didn't develop that tech in the past, and they don't want to like rehaul it all. I couldn't tell you why, but that would be a way to elongate content. It's just there's no. I don't think at this point you could expect any more major merges within New World. Like NA East and EU could go down to one server, and that's the last merge you'll see within New World. So what's tonight's plan? We got a war in 15 minutes. And then I just want to talk about the season 6 stuff because this top half is what I expect. So this is expected, like below this. And then this is what we need. And like I don't think we're going to hit either of these two golds, and this probably could be stretched out even further. Like we need artifact balancing. We need weapon balancing. We need a new weapon. Like if we would need to hit probably on all five of these for stuff to grow. VODs after war, yeah, we could do the VODs after the war. But like you look at this and it's like that's double what we expect. And I just don't think that's likely. Latinas actually beat Mute. Who did they merc? Uh, they probably didn't have to merc. Like you ask who did they merc, but like there's a lot of players that would be willing to take a sub spot in the company right now because there's just not enough wars. You have 24 territories in the entire of NA East that people are fighting for, and very likely about 16 of those are going to be taken by dropouts and supple. Which means you have 8 territories that the entire PvP population that is not dropouts and supple are fighting for. Unless AGS add in a max amount of territory, which would have to be 2 to 3, probably closer to 2. And we probably need like an invasion horde mode or of some sort with better scaling rewards as the horde progresses. If they delivered on all of these in June, I would say the sacrifice of the last 6 to 9 months would be worth it. I expect them to deliver on this with no endgame, basically. And then say, PvPers, we got you. We got this new FFA island where you can fight and gain PvP XP, and nothing else that's going to be super helpful. We have a few new artifacts. We're adding in, like, I don't know, like, probably, like, 5 new artifacts or something like that. Because there was the first round of artifacts, now they're doing a second pass for every single class to have a new artifact. It's just not wonderful. Or you could just fucking practice wars where you could schedule guilds and like a 50v50 starts. Yep. That's something else that's like on the list that like is needed. And the thing that we're not getting that we haven't talked about too, there is no new OPR map in the last 3 years. And there's not going to be a new OPR map. Like, I think there should be a new OPR map and there should be practice wars, but I don't think we're going to hit that. It's like, is this enough for people to play New World for another year? No. It's going to be enough for people to play New World for another 2 months. If they hit on the expected, maybe 2 weeks. Like, I don't think this is going to be more than 2 weeks of retention. If they do this, I would say 3 to 6 months of retention. If they nail it perfectly, and if they hit the nice to have too, then New World may be saved kind of thing. Like, and even then, I don't think so. But maybe. Like, did they listen to anything that the community says there once? No. Their TPMs and their devs are going to make that call, and they're looking for low-hanging fruit because they have an engine that inherently is inflexible and makes it difficult to add new features. Because it's all developed on the Azoth engine, which is based off a Lumberyard, which is an engine that was abandoned by devs and scooped up by AGS at a low price. They aren't good at making the cuddly PvE stuff. Yeah, no. Some people like the PvE, and I'm glad it has a niche, but I don't think that it's like fantastic. But yeah, I mean, that's where I think we're at. I don't know if you guys have anything that should be added to this list that you think would be like higher priority than anything like this, but like We're expecting basically the size of Brimstone Sands and an update or two after Brimstone Sands to be coming out with the amount of delays they've had. Just trash the whole game and rebuild it in 6 months on Unreal Engine like Final Fantasy 14 did. Best call for the game, not gonna lie, Keck. It actually is. Like, if they were to stop development right now, they shut down New World for 6 months to a year, and then they bring it back, I think the game would be in a better spot than trying to make it a live service game, because they clearly can't do both. But the thing is if you're going to shut down New World and release it in a year, isn't that just what you want to do with Lord of the Rings? Like, why wouldn't you just release on Lord of the Rings IPO then? Or, sorry, not IPO, IP. Like, that would just be a better bet. Remember the Lord of the Rings, that's the only reason why New World is still going. Yeah, pretty much. That's why they're not going to do it. Yeah, because they don't really, like, the live service part of New World is a bonus. They care about the ability for players to just be basically a live testing environment. Like, if you think about it, their QA team is incredibly ineffective right now, and the only way they've been effective with troubleshooting stuff in like the past was basically from players discovering things. And you're not going to get players discovering things if you don't have basically a beta for players to do stuff on. I imagine Lord of the Rings is going to be like different in terms of look compared to New World, but it will have a pretty similar feel, and will likely suffer from similar issues as well.